He would say, Dad, come in, mate. And you walked in, there was these men that were going home to dinner, all changing their trousers, because they used to get them all thick of grease, this benzene muck, they couldn't go out in the street in them. There they were, all changing their trousers. I'm trying to walk along without letting my eyes wander around, you know. Not many of them wore pants. And saying them all to that one. And then you went straight back to school, you see. In them days, I done it when Violet left school. Violet done it mostly when she was at school. As the one left school, the one that was the elder then had to take on those jobs, such as for years, I can't remember when it started, but I used to go down the shops every morning. One got the vegetables, and the other got the meat. In the meat shop, on a Monday morning, you just had to wait, on a Tuesday morning, you just had to wait till they'd cut up the animals. Always late for school, time we come back from up the road. And governess said, well, why can't one of you go down the shops? So I told me mother that. She said, let governess mind her own business. You'll still get the vegetables and Violet to get the meat. Well, we was always over Malden. As I say, it was like country village. A little house here and a little house there. We used to go over the Nabby train lines, over the Stile, into Bunce's meadows. And there was little streams meandering through, with all those green scaly bits on the more stagnant one they had, and you'd have tadpoles, and you could get the frogs and tiddlers in the flowing rivers like, you know. And of course cows over there. My mother tells a tale of when she took Lily and Violet out, all their white lace frocks on. Lily sat down in a cow pat. I expect my mother was most pleased with that, especially on white clothes. I should imagine it's smelt quite a bit as well. Then another time we was over Bunce's meadows with Violet and me, and Bertie Foster and Florrie Foster and Georgie Meek, and all having a forbidden paddle. And we put our shoes and stockings on the grass. When we went to get them, they'd gone. I had a lucky one. I had a pair of garters left. I think Violet had her stockings. My shoes went, and so the others. And of course we was worried, and a man come through. What's the matter, he said. I think various members of the party must have been crying, because they knew they'd get good hiding when they got home. And there were some gypsies sitting there, and he asked these gypsies, they were sitting down feeding their babies at their breast, you know, their skirts all spread out around, if they'd seen our shoes and stockings. No, they said, but, you know, when you come to think of it afterwards, they must have had, and there was nobody else went through it. Of course, when we got home, we got a jolly good hiding. My father was told, I know my mother always dished out the good hidings, not my father.
Did your mother hit you a lot?
Yeah, she was, well, she didn't. She was always smacking you around the face or around the head. She didn't give you a lot of good hidings. Although she hit me, she gave me a good hiding once when she had Joan, and she just got up out of bed. And Violet was kept home from work to do the cooking. Violet said to me, put Ernest's bib on. I didn't want to, like. Anyway, I picked him up, put him in the chair, tall back Windsor armchair, just inside the French window, which me mother had done hundreds and thousands of times, 'cause he wriggles about while I'm getting the bib over the other side of the kitchen. And down goes the chair and out he goes. And of course, my father come in, he started shouting about, maybe take me dinner out in the gallery to eat. Then he decided I wasn't going to have it. Get back to school while you're safe. I'm going up the back alley and up the street crying. I'm saying, I haven't had any dinner. I haven't had any dinner. When I got back to school, what are you crying for? I told her the tale. So they took me up the cookery and they found me something to eat. Oh, you poor little thing, she said. I said, I'm going to get a good hiding when I get home tonight. When I got home, Violet said, here's Gertie, out come your dinner, stone cold. I said, don't that, meat pie it was. Come on then, up to bed there. My mother waited at the top of the stairs with a cane. And she slashed me from top to bottom of it. She said, I pushed Ernie out the window, but I never did, you know. And I only done what she was doing. I cried myself to sleep. I reckon I must have had marks all over me. Just as I woke up, I heard Violet calling upstairs, "Mum, can Lily have Gertie's bread pudding?" "Yes," said my mother. Of course, I was in the doghouse for months after that, and I was bought up 2 pieces of bread and margarine. I've never forgotten that, because I never pushed him out the window at all. Anyway, she said he was like a dead child all the afternoon, but then she did call the doctor to him, so he couldn't have been that dead. Actually, the distance he fell wasn't such a great amount, because it was a French window with a small step. It was only the distance of the chair down to that step that he fell, and he went out there, and he was about 3, but it never done him any harm, really.
Do you think your mother caused you to be nervous? Have you nervous trouble?
I shouldn't. Well, I wouldn't like to say that. I think I get it from my father. He was a bit like that. And he got it from his mother, according to what he told me when he was in bed just before he died. He said his mother couldn't stand being shut in anywhere. And that, but I don't suppose she helped it by, because I mean, when I had my hair washed, it was a nightmare to me, because she put the water over my head too hot, and I couldn't bear water running down my face. But left alone to do it myself. Sometimes Mrs. Meek could call her, you know, when I was in the old tin bath, and I'd wash myself, and then I'd suddenly think, well, I had to have my hair washed every week. So I'd wash my hair, and she'd come back in, and I'd be so pleased with myself because I'd washed it myself. That's not clean, and do it again. And then it was dried so much, and then it was plaited and curled up at the end, and we wore it like that Saturday, so on the Sunday your hair was all nice and wavy. But if it rained, it was a waste of time, because as soon as you went out, it went straight, didn't it? Terribly frightened of the dark, you see, but she wouldn't have to have a light in the bedroom, because Lily made a little candle with wax and string, and she put it under the curtains and set the curtains alight, so we never had a light, and I was the first one to go upstairs, and there was no lights. It was all right in the moonlight night, it was all right in the light nights, but I used to walk in waiting for someone to pounce out on me behind the door. I used to be that frightened, I often threw myself on the bed fully clothed, and then when Violet came up, who I shared the bed with, "Mum, Gertie's in bed and not undressed." Well, of course, as soon as Violet came up, and I used to get out and undress myself then. And of course, the lavatory was outside, and that was dark. I didn't like going out into that, but I grew out of it by the time I was 14. I forced myself out of it. And I've always tried to understand my kids and give them a light, you know, if they wanted it. For the simple reason I know what nightmares I went through. I mean, every member of my children has been frightened of the dark for a little while. Jeffrey, that was the worst. He had a light till he was about 14, but the others, after a while, they didn't care.
Yvonne, you mentioned boys. You didn't give us any stories or details about any.
I'm not going to give you any stories or details about boys' son either, because you mightn't think your mother's as nice as what you think she is.
No, I didn't mean that. I just meant...
I
I didn't mean anything unsavoury.
I went out with several boys over the time. Wasn't any I was really interested in, except George Easter, who was one of the gang that Willie went with. William McCartney, who I eventually married. And I had another chap, he was a compositor, but because he was 2 or 3 inches shorter than me, I wouldn't look at him, because I must admit, when I was young, I suppose, I was slim, I was rather conceited, and of course being tall, I was often admired, especially by little men. Then there was another one, of Frank Brown, Frank Brown, that was the compositor one. Another one was a Bert, he was a Coleman. He was rather keen at one time. And various other ones I didn't sort of, just went out with, and they never meant anything. Just a night at the pictures or something. I mean, it took me some while before I'd even go to the pictures, because it was so dark in there. I was taken twice as a child, taken once as a child, and there was a few Charlie Chaplin films, I suppose, and I kicked up so in there because it was dark. My mother let me play out the street the other times that she took them. And so I was turned 14 before I started going to films.
This period we've been talking about is what they call the Roaring Twenties. Do you remember it like they look back on it today with flappers and dancing?
Oh, yeah. We often used to, Lucy and I often used to go down the river at Kingston, and I couldn't swim. I wasn't allowed to go when I was a kid. I couldn't swim, but I used to go in punts with these fellas that take you out in punts up and down the river, you know, and the old music going, and there was a little Tags Island down there. They'd all be sort of anchored round there, and they'd have dancing on there, and sometimes we were only spectators. It all depends how much money we'd got, and other time we joined in.
Were you what would be called a flapper?
Oh, yes. I wasn't very keen on ballroom dancing, but Lucy was. I used to go quite a bit with her and just used to mix about in general with the people. I didn't dance much because, as I say, I think it's because I'm left-handed. I always wanted to do the taking. If anybody wanted to take me, you see, I was all out of step all the wrong side, so I didn't use too much dancing. But, of course, there was always a little bar. I done quite a bit of drinking, because my mother always used to say, your father knows you've been in them public houses, he'll kill you. But I had some rather decent fun in public houses.
Can you tell us about some?
Oh.
One incident?
Well, we used to go to one up in Balham called the Grove, there, and we met these two fellas. I suppose I'm thinking back, they must have both been married. And one of them had rather a nice voice. We were in the old saloon bar, and he's singing a rose in the garden of weeds. I suppose that was supposed to be me. And another time I met this fella, he came up and he said, can I buy you a drink? So I went and had this little drink, which was a port wine, and it cost about 8p. And then he said, I'll walk you home. And he literally meant walk from Balham, and I walked home. When we got home, he thought he was going to have the use of my body, but I shot him up the back alley a bit quick. And that was the last I saw of him.
You mean that boys then were just the same?
They were just the same. They was always after what sex they could get. If they got it, they did. If they didn't, they didn't. What I can see of it, they always, well, let's put it like that. They tried, didn't they?
Well,
but I don't think it was so open. I think when you think back, it's always been the case, right back through history. Not so open as it is today, though, and this free sex and that.
Because don't you think that's rather worrying? Didn't you feel rather worried when somebody approached you like that, knowing that this was perhaps what they were after?
No, it didn't worry you. Just if you was having, say, a little kiss and a cuddle, if you felt their hand creeping down your neck, you knocked it away. You felt it beginning to creep up your skirt, you wiggled away. You just didn't. What's the name you come to sort of expect? Matter of fact, I've come to think they were a bit slow if they didn't try. You didn't get you only got the very odd one that.
Very odd.
Well, I don't know though. I went quite a while with Lucy, and she had a brother, an elder brother, and he, I suppose, going round the house so much they used to have some good parties round her house. Going round there, he quite got to like me, and he wanted to, well, I did go out with him 2 or 3 times, but he didn't even kiss me good night, and I began to think, there was something wrong with him, but I think it was just because he was a decent sort of chap, that's why, I suppose.
Can you remember when you first met him?
Oh, I was with Lucy, was coming home from somewhere, and she knew. He used to knock about in a gang. There was a Mickey Hayes, his father had a shoe shop in Merton High Street. George Lilly, his father had a shop in Merton High Street. Then there was...
Is that the father of the George Lilly that I know, or is it the same one?
The George Lilly that in Rains Park was him.
Was the one in the gang? Mm.
He used to pinch shoes out of his father's shop and sell them to the lads cheap. He used to put them out with the empty boxes, apparently. I didn't know this then, but then his father turned him out when he found out what he was up to, and several other members of the gang. She knew them, and we went into a snack bar and had a cup of coffee, and one of these other fellas, I don't know what his name was, he said, I'll walk you home. When this other blue-eyed chap come up, he said, oh, no, you don't, I'll walk her home. The first words he said to me was, I know your dad, it's Ernie Pidwell. He evidently knew me, but I didn't know him. That was the first time I met him. Went out. Then he arranged to meet me, And previously, the maids to meet another one of my friends, the scene didn't turn up. So, of course, I didn't turn up. Because he told her, oh, that's nothing, I'm always making dates and don't intend to keep them. So when he said, can I take you out again? Yes, I said, top of the road, outside the Wimbledon Pally. But I didn't turn up. I didn't see him for some while after that. And when I did see him, he wanted to know why I didn't turn up. So I told him, oh, I'm always making dates with fellas with no intentions of turning up. This is true, you know. Then they took us in this working man's club. They had a dance there up the Democratic Working Men's Club at Merton Road. We went in there, and then we started going about, because there was also another member of this gang called Jim Wooderson, who Lucy went with. We started going about as a foursome for a bit till I had a row.
With who?
With Wynnum. And I didn't go with him for some while, but he was making inquiries through. Lucy had become engaged to Jim by then. Through them, what I was doing, where I was going. And then they sort of arranged the rendezvous.